let's talk about Donald Trump, who recently announced his candidacy for 2024. Now, you might think, well, that's quite a long way in the future, isn't it? 'Cause it's still 2022. But, I mean, everyone knew that he was going to. And I had previously said, look, it kind of has to be Trump because we've got a kind of story going on here. You know, the American people chose Trump as the champion to put the country right, and, you know, Biden smashed him in a totally free and fair election. And I've got to say, man, I'm not feeling the energy.
I'm not. If the red wave would have happened, I'd have said Trump's on his way back. But the fact there was no red wave means they're not attracting those middle voters who will flip. And something, and I think it may be, we've had Trump. He was a man of the hour 6 years ago. Do we want to go through all that negativity again, all that roller coaster ride again? And I think people may be saying, no, we can't go through that again.
I'm not sure, but we'll examine it in a second. But before we go on, if you want to support us, go to lotus.com, because yesterday I did a little chat where it's just like me talking for an hour about something that's on my mind, about the differences and similarities between Generation X and Generation Z. Because, what, are you Generation X? Or?
I was born late 60s, raised in 70s, so I don't know what I am.
So probably boomer then.
Right.
But I don't know what it was like when you were young, but when I was young, we were bored a lot.
Yeah.
Nothing to do. And you were never given anything to do. You have to make your own fun, right?
Yeah.
But Generation Z are in a totally different perspective. They're never bored. They've never not got anything to do. They're always on their phones. They're constant. But there's never that period of time where you just have to learn to focus on something, even if you're not really that into it, and kind of explore it, you know, because you, like, again, when I was a kid, like, okay, we had video games, but you had like 5 video games. You know, you didn't just have like video games on demand. You didn't have TV on demand. You didn't have any of these things. And so you had to kind of suffer through the restrictions. And it gave you a certain kind of character. And this is one of the things I'm talking about this, because I just think it's interesting that there's something being done to young people now that wasn't done to us when we were young, and I don't know what the consequences of that are going to be, but to be honest with you, I can't imagine that they're good. Like, it feels like they're being deprived of the opportunity to learn a virtue, frankly, the virtue of patience. And so, yeah, that's one of the things I talk about in there. So it was quite interesting, I thought, but like, it's just, whenever there's something that's just constantly on my mind, I just feel the need to do like a stream like that, because it's like, look, I can't get this out of my head, and this is the only way I can do it. But anyway, let's go to Trump announcing his candidacy. So he was at Mar-a-Lago and he gave this speech, and I would have clipped some bits out of it, but weirdly there was nothing very clippable. Yeah. There was nothing very interesting in the speech. And actually, by about 40 minutes in, I was kind of bored and I went and did something else. And this is really unusual because normally Trump's incredibly high energy, incredibly funny, you know, and engaged with the zeitgeist and says things that are just eminently clippable, you know, and they're just fun to take out and play. But this didn't have the same energy. It's not that he was saying things I disagreed with. I mean, I agreed with, you know, all the things he was saying. It's just that he seemed like he'd been battered, frankly. You know, a lot has happened, and it seemed like he just didn't have that energy.
Or has he learned his lesson and he's trying to keep a lid on it?
But the lesson I would take from Trump is that actually, no, it was the bombasticness of what he had done that got him where he was, right?
He's basically going to love him no matter what. If he's reducing his volume, that might be just for those middle voters because he knows he can't win on his base.
I mean, maybe, but
we'll see through time, but we'll see if this is a one-off or...
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, this might be a one-off. This might be a bad step forward for some reason. But I was thinking about that. It's like, well, he's got 2 years, you know, and I mean, maybe it's because he's not on social media, you know, that he can't act like the lightning rod that he did for the media to talk about it, because there was just very little impression this seems to have made. We'll go through it. So, I mean, Fox News produced a couple of articles talking about this, in which they just accurately document that he did well as a president. And no one's denying. Well, there are lots of people denying, actually. No one who doesn't have Trump derangement syndrome is denying that Trump had a good run as president. Everything was going well. Stock market hit record highs. Everyone had some money in their pocket. We weren't at war with Russia.
Just the fact he didn't take the West into another war means he was a successful president.
This sort of peace through strength policy, America first policy, this all worked and it was good, So, and this was all things that were reversed by Joe Biden, because Biden, like the rest of the Dems, have Trump derangement syndrome. But there was a weird lack of reaction. So I was looking around for progressives reacting to this, and all I could really find was Pink News going, "Oh, LGBTQ activists are battle ready for Donald Trump." And it's like, what? Trump poses a serious risk to LGBTQ rights? No one believes that.
No
one thinks that. Totally artificial. And so, Trump is the most anti-LGBTQ plus president in modern history. What? I doubt it. Go and ask Nixon what he thinks of the gays. I just don't believe it. Anyway, so moving on, we got the usual sort of pathological fact-checking. Oh, 4 big lies that he said. And if you get to the next one, MSNBC, Rachel Maddow, being like, "Oh, look at this, all more lies from Trump." It's like, big talk coming from Rachel Maddow. But really, we were subject to a kind of media blackout, which the Washington Post pointed out, saying that Donald Trump announced on Tuesday that he would mount another run for the White House, a rare case for a former president seeking his old job. But 3 major broadcast networks opted not to carry the speech live. ABC, NBC, and CBS all decided to stick to their existing scheduling. Fox News aired most of the speech, while CNN only carried 25 minutes of it, and MSNBC chose not to air it either. And that's very interesting, because if there was one thing that Trump was good for, it's their ratings. So they were incentivized to, of course, broadcast and publish everything that Trump was saying and doing every second of the day, because it made them money. But the converse of this is, of course, there's no such thing as bad publicity. And this allowed Donald Trump to dominate the media cycles, the news cycle, and probably got him a lot more support than they expected. So maybe they're being strategic about this and saying, well, look, we just don't want him back, and so we're not going to...
I think that's exactly what's happening, and I think they've learned a lesson. To begin with, Trump was, like you say, great for ratings. He was a clown. Let's all laugh at him. Oh my God, he's now won.
Yeah, and everyone loved it.
Yeah. Now they're thinking, we don't need the ratings. We don't need the money if it means he gets 4 more years. And it's political.
Yeah. But The Guardian covered this. And I've got to say, right, I kind of agree with The Guardian's summary here. And I don't want to, but I don't think Trump's approaching this on the right tack at all. They say, quote, "In an attempt to appear presidential, something that America had previously spent 4 years waiting for in vain, he delivered the kind of low-energy performance for which he used to mock Jeb Bush. Thus, Jeb Bush Jr. wrote on Twitter, 'Wow, what a low-energy speech by the Donald. Time for new leaders. #weak, #sleepy Donny.' Here was the spectacle of a man who is over the hill, chasing past glories, raging against the dying of the light. Just as I promised in 2016, I am your voice, he told guests, but it did not seem to strike the same chord as 6 years ago." I agree with that.
6 years is a long time as you're getting older and older.
It is, and this we'll get to his age in a minute, in fact, because the reception from people like The Atlantic was, as you'd expect. Is Trump a viable candidate? Well, yes and no. He's still got a lot of grip over the GOP, but they interpret the Republicans' failure to get an outstanding victory in the midterms as being a general rebuke from the American public. And maybe you are right. Maybe there are Americans out there who are just the independents who are just like, no, I just can't go through it again. The media will be hysterical. It's just not worth it. I'm being held hostage by an abusive elite in my country, and I just don't want Donald Trump to come back and cause trouble. There are other reasons, maybe, but we can't mention them on YouTube, so never mind. But one thing they point out is they say Trump's greatest obstacle to a comeback may be the widespread belief among party leaders, donors, and key figures within conservative media that continued hostility towards him is the principal reason that Democrats lost. And so they are going to rescind their support of him. And that, I think, is quite a big deal. And so if we look at the National Review for centrist conservatism. They just put an article saying no. Just it's pretty blunt repudiation, isn't it?
Mm.
It's too early to know what the rest of the field will look like, except it will offer much better alternatives than Trump. You don't know what the field's going to look like, but we're sure it's going to be better than Trump. Okay. But yeah, so they say that it should be a firm, unmistakable no. It's like, okay, thank you, National Review. Yes. The National Review, which are the conservative, I don't know, like wet blanket, I would describe them. They exist to allow the left to win, as far as I'm concerned. So I don't terribly find their position important. But the New York Post was a lot more firm in their support of Donald Trump. And if you can pull up this image, this was very remarkable. As you can see there on page 26 at the bottom, Florida man makes announcement. That's how they covered this.
Right.
And so if we go to page 26, if you can pull this up as well, just so we can see the full thing. This is the entirety of their coverage of Trump's announcement. Right? Been there, done that. With just 720 days to go before the next election, a Florida retiree made a surprise announcement Tuesday night that he was running for president. In a move that no political pundit saw coming, avid golfer Donald J. Trump kicked things off at Mar-a-Lago, his resort and classified documents library. Trump, famous for gold-plated lobbies and for firing people on a reality television show, will be 78 in 2024. If elected, Trump would tie Joe Biden as the oldest president to take office. His cholesterol levels are unknown, but his favorite food is charred steak with ketchup. He has stated that his qualifications for office include being a stable genius. Trump also serves as the 45th president. Ow.
And is that a proper newspaper?
Yes, that's the oldest newspaper in the United States. Fourth most widely read.
That's something I'd imagine you'd read in a parody.
They are a bit more like the Sun than the Times,
Right.
but they're not a paper of no repute, and they're the ones who broke the Hunter Biden laptop story, for example.
Oh, wow.
They were the ones who had it suppressed, and so it's just like, ow, that's quite brutal, actually. I think, you know, I mean, the Fox article I was referencing earlier have a very long list of Trump's achievements as president. You know, so and it's, I guess you could say sympathetic, but it's not. It doesn't say, oh, he's going to be great or anything like that. It just lists the things that he did that were good for the United States, and it's a long list. So fair enough. And to get this kind of response from the New York Post, it's just like, whew. So the left-wing media is generally not really very triggered by Trump saying he's going to run. And the right-wing media is like, no, he's too old and we're not interested. So that's pretty bad. And apparently Fox News bosses have in fact said that they'd rather DeSantis was the guy, as you were saying earlier, because he's not as divisive, allegedly, but I think he is. I just think that he's not been in the eye of the storm yet. You know, because he's got Trump mannerisms. And he does say things that are just, I mean, if the left-wing media if he was the guy and all they had to fixate on was him, they'd be able to pull all the same quotes that they had done for Trump.
I'm sure they will. I think they will. He'll be the new orange man. They will go for him as much as they went for Donald Trump. The difference with Donald Trump is his personality, how bombastic he is, how in your face he is.
How funny he was.
Yeah. How funny he was, which could be a plus, but also a minus. I think the American people may not want that again. They may want a slightly more serious politician who has all the same views as Donald Trump, but just delivers the messages a little bit more calmly and doesn't set everybody off on hysteria.
Yeah, I think a lot of the right-wing activists as well will point to DeSantis and point to his actual history and legacy so far of actually legislating against the things he doesn't want. Like, so, you know, DeSantis has signed loads and loads of bills for Florida that just actively harm left-wing causes. He's saying, no, we're not having this. We're not having that. We're not having drag queen story out. We're not having, you know, boys running in women's sports and things like this. Like, DeSantis has quite a concrete record of just clearing them out, actually. Whereas Trump, as everyone points out, governed as a moderate and did very little damage to the swamp. Whereas DeSantis, I suppose, might do more. Now, there are people who will also say, well, hang on a second. DeSantis appears to kind of be, in some ways, a creature of the swamp and partially captured by these interests. And I don't really know, so maybe. Who knows? I don't think DeSantis is going to be the sort of outsider that Trump was. No. And that was part of the reason I liked Trump, to be honest. He was so far outside of like regular American politics.
He was a disruptor at that time.
Yeah. And it was very good for the time. But
And don't forget, he never thought he was going to win.
I never thought he was going to win.
So he was on a journey to have as much fun and get everything off my chest I want to get off about politicians in the US. Yeah. And he found himself winning, but I don't think that was not his plan.
The media, the politicians, the activists, the Democrats, just don't even care. And then, oh no, you're in charge. Bigger job than you thought, you know. But yeah, anyway. So this is not good, really, is it? Oh, John, what have you pulled up here, mate? 60% of Ron DeSantis' donations have come from donations of $50,000 or more. 54% of Donald Trump's donations with donations of less than $200. Just 6% of these donations went to DeSantis. He's backed by billionaires in the establishment. Here are some of them. Right. This is exactly the point I was making, John. Thanks for pulling this up. Like I said, I don't know anything about this in detail, but it does seem that DeSantis is the safe bet for the people in charge, right? Oh, God, apart from Sequoia Capital... Go back up. So the Sequoia Capital guy, these were the ones who were involved in FTX. Brilliant. Okay. So yeah, DeSantis appears to have some strings on him, which is my objection. I mean, I like everything that DeSantis has done. I like the way he treats the media. I like the way he deals with all these things. But he does seem to be a bit of an insider. And I don't think that the change that people were hoping for that Donald Trump would bring in is possible through someone like DeSantis.
If Trump had never existed, you'd be looking at DeSantis going, he's the most far-right potential candidate we've ever seen. And it's only because we compare him to Trump where we go, oh.
But would DeSantis have the sort of model of politics that he has to follow if not for Trump?
No.
Because I feel like Trump was something of a trailblazer.
He kicked the doors in for other people to come after him, to have an easier ride to get things done. Let's
hope so. But anyway, so his former education secretary, Bill Bennett, who is an ardent supporter of Trump, doesn't back him and says he doesn't think he can win. He says, quote, I hope he's not the nominee this time. It's pretty brutal, really. Yeah. Obviously, Mike Pence isn't on his side either. And a Fox News host the other day asked Lara Trump on air, Donald Trump's her father-in-law, she says, quote, I have to say there wasn't a great reception to the speech last night. Those of us on the outside looking at it, it doesn't seem that he's got the old magic. You know what I mean? Now, of course, Lara Trump was like, no, of course I disagree with that. But I actually do agree with that. It looked like the sort of the old energy and the magic, as she puts it, it just wasn't there. And there are lots of conservatives who are just like, no, I'm not really feeling it. So there we go.
People who support him are always going to support him, even though they might want him to be a lot more energetic. I think he's just aiming for the people who are sitting on the fence. He needs them more than he needs his base. His base are there.
Yeah, but to have like this big buzz around you and have lots of people talking and be excited and feel like something new and interesting is coming, I think is important in a candidacy like Trump's. Like to get the sort of the swing voters, the fence sitters, to at least even pay attention, you know. But I mean, I guess we'll see when it goes to. Apparently, Fox News put up a graphic the other day. I couldn't find it in time for this, but they were listing who could be the nominee for 2024, and Trump wasn't even on it. It's like, but when polled, the Republican Party, he's still massively popular. He's still by far the candidate of choice. So I guess we'll see. And like I said earlier, I think him not being on social media is a big drag to the kind of candidacy that he'd have as well. So there are lots of factors, I think, that are working against him.
I think there's a big test coming, and that's when the next one or two people declare that they're running.
Yeah.
His response to that will know if he's the same old Trump, because his old response would be, I'm going to rip you apart.
Yeah.
And we'll see if the old Trump's still there.
If you appreciated that segment from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to get access to all the premium content we have on the site, such as the premium videos we do, this one on the politics and philosophy of Mass Effect. If you'd like to find out what else we're putting out, you can follow us on Getter at lotuseaters_com on Getter. Thank you and goodbye.